Hello, and welcome right back. Yes, Water Hazard, by far one of my all-time favorite chapters in all of Half-Life 2. It's got so much going on if you have the right set of eyes to pay attention, if you catch my drift, which is why I'm having this terrible itch to get started. So let's dive right into it with this one. So here's the deal. There's an urban myth, for lack of a better term, to be debunked or confirmed, take your pick, we're about to see that, concerning what might be a secret G-Man sight-in. Now, I'm not talking about that time you get to catch a glimpse of the man pulling up to the big red barn early on. This one is just around the next bend up the river a short ways. So evidently, ramping over this barricade and then using the airboat to get a boost into this pipe will cause a secret scene to happen where the G-Man is supposed to turn up out of nowhere on top of that dam right across the way. So I went through with it, obviously, and let me tell you, get in and out of this pipe all you want. There is no G-Man to be seen anywhere around. And yes, I've given it a shot on both the latest updated Steam version, whatever, and the original 2004 build. This one is pretty hard to come by these days unless you own a physical copy. So either it's a hoax or a mod that made it look like he was there on top of that dam. Take your goddamn pick. Yes, sir, this one is really super rare, but if you luck out enough to see a MetroCop get devoured by a barnacle underneath this little bridge that you have to go through, you might get to see them pop up on top of that bridge, locked up in a static animation before, of course, they disappear entirely. Yeah, this one is kind of awkward. Oh, and by the way, speaking of that ramp early on in Water Hazard, there's a few more things to be mentioned before we move on with our lives. So first of all, there is this piece of eerie music that kicks in as soon as you dismount nearby. As soon as you've, jumped the ramp and then dismounted. It's very easy to miss while you stay in the airboat, if you stay in the airboat, due to the engine noises, but on foot, it's right there. And secondly, what the hell is wrong with the view of the canals, on the other side of these metal bars? Like, there's an apartment block floating in the air. Are you gonna tell me nobody at Valve, they just let this one slip through the cracks? No way. Not only that, but by the time you've come around the other side of the dam, the view of the opposite side, the one you came from, will have changed drastically again. Suddenly, that whole area with the bridge and the ramp has been replaced by a solid slab of rock or concrete. Like, where did the bridge go? And last but not least, this time for real, I'm getting really goddamn sick of this goddamn ramp. Dismount and check right underneath it. There's a little extra SMG ammo up for grabs. It's not a lambda location. You don't really stand to gain anything, other than a little extra ammo. Why not? You can't go wrong with that in this game. Do you ever stop to let the MetroCops murder you in cold blood so you can see what they will be up to afterwards? A good time and place to do it is right up the canal after the first ramp puzzle with the blue barrels. Dismount and get wrecked, then you'll see the MetroCops casually hanging around like it's just another fucking Tuesday in City 17. Also, I have a pretty good reason to believe that the MetroCops in Half-Life 2 must be absolutely fucking terrified of water. They wouldn't touch that shit with a 10-foot pole if they were thirsty and dying. See how they won't bother chasing me across the water over here? Like, even though there's only so much water, you couldn't pay me to drown a midget in it. It's just, what the hell?
Anti-citizen reported in this community. Code. Lock. Cauterize. Stabilize.
Much like in point insertion, Breen can be found in a little sealed-off room way outside the map's boundaries. Obviously, you're gonna need cheap commands to get anywhere near him. He's there to address the civil protection on one of the screens when you've made it to the depot. And yes, macking him with the crowbar or shooting will kill the man pretty much instantly. And I'm about to slap you with a real shocker, guys, but pulling up to the Civil Protection Depot, outpost, whatever, pay attention to the Soviet-style apartment block towering over the left bank. One of the buildings is going to be marked with 33. Damn, talk about reassurance-seeking. Half-Life 3 is officially confirmed, guys.
No.
Moving on, Freeman is totally badass, but dropping down from a great height will normally hurt him just as much. Suit or not, he's still only human, and the laws of physics apply to him just as much. But have you tried hitting the water while you drop down from a big height in Water Hazard? Doesn't matter if you drop down from 100 feet into barely a foot worth of water, the damage is still not there at all. Just look at this, there is nowhere near enough water to break the fall and negate all the damage. How is this supposed to make any sense? I swear, the Citadel in Water Hazard must be downright possessed, because otherwise explain how it's there 1 second and then totally gone the next. What I mean is, by the time you've made it to the large docking station or a cargo depot manned by the Civil Protection, the Citadel will have disappeared from the background entirely. You would think, alright, I must be so far out in the canals that I no longer can see it, but it was right there in the previous area. So where did it go in the span of what, just 1 minute, 40 seconds that it took you to get to the depot? That makes no sense. Speaking of nonsense, by the way, that part where you have to barge into a Civil Protection outpost early on, then find and blow up a bunch of barrels to bash open the floodgate, you don't have to do any of that nonsense. Just mess around with the angle right down here until you've got one of the flammable barrels in your sights. From there, it's as easy as just plinking it a few times with your pistol until it goes up in flames and bang, done. Simple. Speaking of the G-Man, the fancy pants motherfucker might as well be some kind of deity, seeing as he's virtually invincible to all types of damage imaginable, or at least nothing you can do will ever so much as make a dent in him. But that doesn't mean we can't lure some man-hacks and MetroCops to put him down right where he stands on top of that dam overlooking Black Mesa East. So first, you want to jump the ramp leading up to the hilltop with the CP outpost, slam the gas and ramp right across. Turn around as soon as some MetroCops and manhacks have come spilling out and spraying you with hot lead. Just keep in mind, do not take these guys out. We're gonna need them soon enough. Now spin the airboat and slide right off the brink into that vast, dried-up riverbed down below. Head straight for the control tower on top of the dam, where you should be able to see the G-Man hanging out all by himself. Pull up against the side of the dam, dismount, and use the airboat to clamber onto the top. By the time you catch up to him, the area should be buzzing with manhacks and MetroCops alike that have followed you around. Stand behind him while he gets a buzz cut from the manhacks. Soon enough, the motherfucker should soak up enough damage to knock him out cold. Now blow the manhacks to bits and feel free to approach his lifeless body. There you go. Oh, and by the way, this one is totally gonna blow your panties clean off. Did you realize these drains were fake? Just textures with no real geometry going on? I mean, I bet Gaben never figured I would notice, but I did, so. Oh, and this one is, wow. The MetroCop manning the mounted machine gun at the depot doesn't seem to have any problems with barrels moving around on their own. Try grabbing a barrel while he's not looking and sneaking all the way across towards him while holding the barrel out in front of yourself. Until you've got close enough for him to see past the barrel, he won't even flinch or notice anything out of place. Also, yes, that red cart or whatever nearby can be mounted and ridden. It even lets you steer it back and forth simply by pressing the forward and backward buttons like you would do on foot. You don't have to take down the attack helicopter at the cargo depot in order to open the floodgates and proceed further on. If you choose to spare it, which you most likely never will, or do just a little damage while leaving it intact enough to stay airborne, the chopper will just hang around the depot, keeping its distance, and proceed to tail you as soon as you've mounted the airboat, but only until the next loading screen. Then, it'll be replaced by another chopper of the exact same type, except this one will be brand new, no wear and tear to be seen on it from its last encounter with you. And if you double back into the previous area, the first chopper will still be there for you to see, still banged up and on fire like it was the last time around. Speaking of the cargo depot, what's up with the watermelon and the big blue boxcar behind the chain link fans? There's also a grenade pickup to be had. The way it takes stacking some crates or barrels to even get here suggests we're not supposed to be here, but here I am regardless. This one takes some paying attention to even notice, but there is a Breen graffiti tag on one of the barns that make up Station 12, the big red barn place. It's behind the fans, so unless you want to knock-lip there, it takes a certain angle to be able to see it the legit way, like looking out the window in the red barn, but there it is. Keep your eyes open on the outlines of what looks like Ravenhall perched on top of the big hill right behind Black Mesa East. The only thing that makes very little sense, if at all, is the tall spire-like structure that dominates the cityscape, which is out of place considering Ravenholm is just a small mining town with no real tall buildings to speak of, certainly no citadels or spires. Not to mention most of the buildings look like they were gutted by fires and flames, which is something you don't get to see in Ravenholm by the time you set foot in there. Theories abound, with some people convinced it's the earlier version of Ravenholm that had been placed here way before the devs actually got around to polishing the final version of the famous ghost town. Think of it as an artifact of the early era. Whatever it is, it sure is creepy. Now, this Vort that gets busy mounting the cannon onto the airboat while you take a look at the map, you can actually spy on him at work. Just hop up onto the stable and have a look through the window that faces the jetty where your airboat is moored. If you're fast enough, you might be able to see the cannon magically show up out of nowhere while the Vort makes it look like he's working some magical razzle-dazzle. By the way, you're absolutely welcome to give these guys the finger while you ditch the airboat behind and head out on foot. You would be surprised just how far you can get without that rust bucket. Don't get a big head though, eventually you will die. Also, once the airboat has been upgraded to have a cannon, mount it and take it up the river. Soon, you will pull into a long, narrow canal lined on both sides with catwalks. Several unique propane tanks are up on the walkway for you to mess around with. That is, if you can climb up there first. Get out of the airboat and try climbing onto it. Don't mess around too long or you will get knocked out by being in the toxic waste. If you nail it, jump across and land on the catwalk. Try blinking the propane tanks with the pistol, which will immediately swoosh away in a blur. Apart from the propane tanks, there are several pickups nearby to be collected. Also, yes, no clipping into barnacles disables the cheat command and drops you back down to the ground. Yeah. These MetroCops on these makeshift catwalks or whatever they are, they will die the second you even touch the wooden support beams that keep the whole thing propped up. You cannot avoid picking up the 357 Colt Python as you arrive at the cargo depot and make your way in through the back door. Feel free and try sneaking past all you want. The game will make sure the new gun gets picked up one way or another. You know, one day I figured I would try lobbing some grenades into the control tower's windows at the cargo depot. After all, 2 MetroCops are known to have taken cover up in there. But lo and behold, both MetroCops are gonna be alive and kicking by the time I come climbing up into the tower, but the scorch marks are there. So what happened? You know what? Nothing gets my heart pumping quite like talking about the skulls hidden in out-of-the-way spots throughout the canals. I have a separate video on these, so feel free to check it out too if you so desire. But long story short, there's a bunch of them skulls all over the place with some making no sense as to how they even got there to begin with. And putting bullets in them seems to make them bleed, which is pretty odd. Say what you will, but the G-Man has probably the most unusual hair I've ever seen in my entire life. It's purplish with an unnatural texture and a sheen that defies the pretty much all laws of physics. Also, he's got something of a balding patch, or maybe I'm making this up, and it makes his head freak out like hell. The fella should out to have it looked at before it's out of hand. And finally, last but not least, there's a bit of a graffiti tag, whatever you call it, towards the end of the chapter. It's just 3 letters, BTC. And the way I figure it translates into better take cock.